Spanish-American War. He was the one that devised jungle warfare, because up to that point we had never fought in the jungle. So, I mean, I feel that's a definite privilege that I can look back over my life and the people that I have had the privilege to learn to love. If I had not been a Medal of Honor recipient, I would not have had that privilege. I have got to know every president since Lyndon Johnson, most of them as friends, not all of them. Most of them as friends. Yes, sir.
Sir, Fifth on Force Sports Squadron Commander. Tagging along with that question, who is someone that you have yet to meet who you would like to?
Who I have yet to meet but would like to.
Sir.
I would like to meet the commander of the battalion of NVA that I fought that night in Vietnam. I would like to meet them. They were, on the most part, were very honorable soldiers, and I would like to, I'd like to be able to sit down with them and have a glass of tea. Yes, ma'am.
Carol Weisner, Public Affairs Officer. I'm sure you've gone over the night many times in your head, especially from receiving Medal of Honor because of it. What have you thought what you would do differently had you been able to really relive it again, or would you do the same exact thing every single time?
I have visited that every night for 45 years. I would do the same thing. I wished that I wouldn't have gotten so tired. I wished I wouldn't have hurt quite so much. Maybe I could have swum across that river one more time and brought back one more of my brothers. But there's nothing that I would really change. Other than I wish that I could have lasted a little longer. You know, and that's one of the things that's been heavy on my heart all these years, that if I could have just swum across that river one more time, maybe I could have found one more of my brothers over there. And that's really heavy on my heart. But as others have tried to help me understand that I did the best I could with what, you know, I was shot in the leg, my back was broke, my ribs was crushed, I was burnt. My body was pretty well spindled, folded, and mutilated. I kept praying to the man above to serve. What my prayer was, sir, just let me do my job. Just let me do my job. And he gave me the strength to do my job. Yes, sir.
Sir Fifth Birch, Joint Ceremonies Officer. Since you've been out of the military, what have you been doing?
What have I been doing?
Yes.
Well, we've got 15 grandkids.
I have 15 grandchildren, 4 children, 15 grandchildren. I spent a lot of time in and out of hospitals. When I came out, I worked for Champion Laboratories in West Salem, Illinois for a couple of years. And then I went to work in a power generating station in Hudsonville, Illinois. And they medically retired me because they thought I was going to die. And I spent a few more years in and out of the hospital, and I made a deal with the man above. You know, if you pull me through this, sir, I promise to keep doing my job. And he's living up to his, and I'm trying to live up to my agreement. We're on the road at least 200 days a year, traveling all over the United States, traveling and speaking, talking to students, to military, corporations. So, you don't lose till you quit trying. Next question. Yes, sir.
Sir, Doug was to justify that night when the major came and told you that you were going to be hit 100%. How did you and your man react to that?
Well, I can't say exactly because it's a mixed audience. Trying to think exactly how I could put this. When the major said your chance of getting hits 100%, and then he said, "See you later," and he gets on the telecover. We had some comments. And they 45 years. Next question. Yes, sir.
Sir, Ed Bellis, Commanding Executive Officer. I was just wondering if you had any experience seeing the Air Force involved in that conflict, and what your opinions or your friends' opinions in your area would have been of the Air Force.
Cool. Upon occasion, I have Air Force pilots. I've kissed them square on the mouth. And was proud of them. Because if they hadn't done their job, I wouldn't be alive to be doing my job. The Air Force saved our bacon. I can't say on a daily basis, but almost on a daily basis. Cool. Now the Navy guys, you can't tell that because Navy guys, they get all weirded out when somebody kisses them. They don't pick on the Navy, they think you don't love them. Next question. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, Fishman, Delta Flight. When you swam across the river to save your brothers, having in your biography it did say that you knew how to swim, obviously the air mattress. But was it ever even a question to you that I can't swim? Maybe if someone who can, or is it just immediate? Gotta go now.
I could swim. We lived at Waverly, there by the little White River comes through Waverly, Indiana, and I take my little brother down and we swim in the river every opportunity. I knew how to swim. That night in specific, because of the extent of my injuries, I knew that I just couldn't. I mean, I was hurting so bad I couldn't hardly breathe, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to just go swim across the river.
Okay.
So that's why I got the air mattress. I thought, well, if I could put, because at that point I only thought there was one man across the river. I thought that Gwendell was the only one. I thought, well, I could lay him on the mattress and I could tow him back across. And it wasn't until I got over there and I got to the foxhole where he was in, and there were 3 men in it. That complicated things. That's, I asked the man above to give me the strength to do my job. Jim Deister, the man shot through the head. Jim was shot right through the head and through the chest, and we thought he was dead. And I picked Jim up and put him across my shoulders, with his head laying on this shoulder, one arm on each side. Picked up Billy Ray, picked up Gwendell, and away. Gwendell still had 3 clips for his M16, so I put a clip in each pocket, and I enlarged the sling on his M16 and hung it on my head, and here we go back. I could hear when the enemy would start a mass assault wave, I could hear them coming through the jungle, and I'd lay the guys down real quick and get grass. Elephant grass was 15, 20 foot tall in spots, and limb, whatever, just something to break us up. I didn't want to totally cover us because that would be very obvious. I wanted to blend in because of the amount of the dead troops, their troops, that were, the Beehive had done an excellent job. There were, I was accredited with 500 dead that night of the enemy. I mean, if you go to figure when there's 150 to 250 of the enemy running at you and you fire a Beehive, inch and 1/8 long dart made out of spring steel. They look like a little arrow. They got 4 fins on it. And when you fired this out, when it came, the second that it cleared the end of the howitzer, it's spread out like this. So it's a big shotgun, and it did a job. It did its job. We just kept going. You don't lose till you quit trying, and that's what I kept doing. I just laid the guys down, cover us up real quick, and I would lay on top of them with the M16. I'd be laying face up, watching. And the NVA that would see me, I mean, all of them could see me because it was, I mean, laying in the open basically. But like I say, we blended in with everybody else, but you could see their eyes. When somebody, I mean, you know, I can see everybody in the room right now, but I'm looking at this young man. And he can tell that I'm looking at him, but I can also see this gentleman here and this lady here. When we locked eyes and I could see that he was getting ready to do his job as a soldier, I'd pick up a 16 and do my job as a soldier and lay it back down. Because of the, I mean, all the enemy, they're shooting. I mean, it's not one round that I would fire. You couldn't tell really. It was no big deal. There's that much gunfire and mortars going off and hand grenades, and after they would pass over us, they'd go through the river and go over in the artillery area. Well, I would pick up the guys and away we'd go again, and I'd get another 20 foot or 30, 40 foot, whatever, and here they'd come again. Just kept moving, kept moving, kept moving, kept moving. Finally we made it. And all 3 men survived. Jim Deister was not dead. And I can remember when I put him on the air mattress, his head was underwater the whole time across the river, because I thought he was dead. And Jim Deister's alive, well, living in Salina, Kansas today, and like it says in the movie, I got to hold his grandbabies. And there's nothing more that makes your heart feel any better than when I got to hold them babies. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Sir, Lieutenant Owen. I was just wondering, besides obviously this night, if you could tell us any of, like, say, the worst and best times you had while you're over there. Like in the video, it talked about you could be fined for 8 hours straight, but then you
Yes,
had
sir.
2 days off. Or any other funny stories like that, so.
Yes, sir. Well, as artillery, there were days when you didn't fire the weapon. And then there were days that's what you did for 20 hours. When the infantry was engaged, you had to do your job and support the infantry. That was our job. And then when the infantry was not engaged, which was not very often, well, then you cleaned your weapon and painted it or whatever, whatever the mean old sergeant could think of to keep you busy, that's what you did. Which if y'all don't understand that, you will here shortly. Next question. Yes, sir.
So my name is Ian Doig, and I'm a future JAG officer.
Cool.
So you've got to watch the military evolve for quite some time now. I'm just wondering, what are you most happy to see in that evolution, and where do you think we still need to work?
Where do we still need to work? The military has not changed. That's not true. It is true, but the military, the core, what your job is in the military has remained the same. How you do the job has changed, but the job remains the same. There must be rules in the military. There must be rules in warfare. As a JAG officer, you're going to get beat up real bad. Sometimes you'll even earn it. But you have to understand that the military needs rules, regulations, or it's chaos, or it becomes a gang, it becomes terrorists, right? That's why the terrorists are so devoid of honor, in my opinion, because they have no rules, they have no regulations, they have no honor. And what makes the military that we are today is because we do abide by those rules and regulations on a personal basis and on a unit basis, and that's what it takes. And sometimes I can remember as a very young troop thinking, well, this is stupid. And it wasn't until I got a little older, a little bit more life experience, did I truly understand why those rules at that time had to be enacted and enforced. As you get more life experience, it's amazing the clearer the picture becomes. I can't wait till I get to be a really old man. Well, that's how old dudes get to be so smart. It's because they've had so much life. And if they've survived to be 90 years old or 100 years old, John Finn was our oldest living Medal of Honor recipient. John earned his medal at Pearl Harbor. And John was such an awesome, he had eyes that were so blue that you could just look into his eyes all day. I mean, that's how, that was just so, he had such cool blue eyes, and a sweet, sweet man. And when I first came into the Medal of Honor Society as a Vietnam veteran, and John would spend time with us kids at the time, and he would explain to us things happening, why this was happening. And I can remember thinking, wow, how did he get to be so smart? How does he get to know all about this and all about this and all about this? Well, it's because of life experience. We need rules, we need regulations, and we need to maintain decorum. If not, we're terrorists. And terrorists are unacceptable. That answer all right, sir? Yes, sir.
Sir, Cadet Brisley, if you were able to talk to those who had harassed you at the airport today, what would you say to them?
Well, I would like to say and do to them today the same thing that I would like to have done to them 45 years ago. I have had the privilege of meeting over the years some of those people that were involved. And they have apologized and said, we're sorry, we did not know the truth. They had been misinformed. And what it boils down to, in my opinion, was that they didn't have very much life experience. And they were thinking that, well, gee, you know, if everybody was just kind and loving and kissed and hugged each other, there'd never be any wars and there'd never be nothing would ever be wrong and we'd all live in this, you know, paradise, which sounds so wonderful. But what I have learned in my life, that that's not the way life truly is. Because if you're the kind, loving, generous person, somebody's going to come in and have their way with you. And that's the way the world, that's my life experience. That's the way the world has went in the history of mankind. And being kind, loving, generous really sounds really awesome, and I wish that's the way it really was. But for my life experience, those that are kind, loving, and generous usually are slaves. Because the guy with the big club comes in, so that's why we have to have the rules, the regulations, and we all have to have honor. Understand that? Did I explain that okay? Yes, sir.
Sir, again, I'm going to do my last question then. Actually, let's talk about this, sir. Since winning the Medal of Honor, you've seen a lot of people and done a lot of places. Do you have any unique stories or experiences of people that you've met? Like, what is the most unique story or experience you've had with a person, president, politician, whoever, since you've won the Medal of Honor?
The most unique story. Well, I've got a lot of them. The most recent one. Our current president, when he was elected in his first office, and we had a meeting, and I've got a pen that says I can hug the president anytime I want. And I was wearing a pen. And I walked up to him and I gave him a hug, and I said, "Sir, I voted for the veteran." He grabbed a hold of my shoulders and pushed me back and looked me right in the eye, and he was not happy. Well, I gathered him right back up. And I said, "But sir, if necessary, I will give my life for yours." And then I wanted to see his eyes. He didn't understand. He did not understand. And that's one of the things that sticks in my mind. I will give my life for my president. That's my job. And I will do it honorably with pride. I still don't feel in my heart that he understands that love, that conviction in your heart, that dedication. And I keep trying to be educated on it. I keep trying to hope that he will see that. But so far, and I keep trying to educate him. Whenever Dixie and I see him now, usually he walks around, he goes like this here and walks around me. But I still grab him and give him a hug. He's my president.
Tell him the story of Lyndon Johnson's daughter.
Lyndon Johnson. President Johnson was the man that gave me the Medal of Honor. I was not married at the time. And when we were in there was a little secret room off the the East Room, that he had us 5 recipients in. Each of us were the first living in our field. And he took us in, you know, the wall kind of opened up and we went into this room. There was a whole room full of reporters and people out here. And he sat down with us and started visiting. Well, it didn't take him very long to figure out that I was just a country boy. We started talking about catching catfish and eating crawdads and all that kind of stuff. He said, well, son, I've got a little ranch just 90 miles. I was stationed at Fort Hood, Texas at the time. He said, I've got a little ranch just 90 miles south of you. He pulled the card out. He said, come down and see me. I put it in my pocket. Well, for about 2 weeks after the Medal of Honor presentation, they had me running all over everywhere, talking. Got back to Fort Hood, Texas. I was tired and wore out. Had a weekend off. I remembered that the president had 2 daughters. So I called the number on it, and I said, yes, Sergeant Davis, come on down. And it took about an hour and a half drive down there, and I drove in, pushed the button on the big gate, and the speaker came on. You know, this is Sergeant Sammy Davis. Oh, yes, come right in, Sergeant. And they took me over to the pool house, and I parked my car and went in and changed clothes. And I noticed that one of the president's daughters was laying out by the pool, so I thought, well, I really do need to go swimming. I put my bathing trunks on and put my towel over my arm, you know, like you see in the movies. I go walking out. Well, there were no chairs on her side of the pool, so I walked over to the other side of the pool, and I got a chair. Now, I wasn't going to go sit right next to her, but I was going to get, you know, 20 feet or so from her. I'd come over and set the chair down. I sat down in the chair, and when I sat down, she got up and moved to the other side of the pool. Well, the president's wife had seen what had happened later, and she pulled the window up and she said, Sergeant Davis, come on in, I want to talk to you. So I went in, and she apologized for her daughter's action. I got to go down 2 or 3 times and spend some time. The president was never there, but I got to know Lady Bird. She was like a mama. She gave me the best mama hugs in the world, and at that time, well, always you need all the mama hugs you can get. But the daughters got their payback. The one that was by the pool, she got her payback. She married a Marine. But I've had the privilege of having a lot of stories like that over the years. There's some really unique things. Some I can talk about, some I can't. Next question. Yes, sir.
G'day, Katie. How's it going? So around